Welcome to the Podfather podcast. You can find all our episodes on podfather.me. You can find my 6 podcasts. You scan the QR code or go to roycollin.com. If you're looking for virtual assistants, go to va.world. My guest enables thriving workplaces. He's a burnout survivor, an AI solutions consultant, a global thought leader on HR and wellness, a therapist, keynote speaker, an author, an executive coach, and the host of The Breakfast Leadership, which has, as of today, 877 episodes, which is impressive. And he's podcasting since 2017. And it's in the top 2%. And I know that fluctuates, so you might have been even in the top 1 or half, but it fluctuates in and out. Please welcome Michael Levitt.
Great to be with you today, Roy.
Yeah, no, looking forward to this. So you started before me. I started in 2018. So I suppose let's just learn about your podcasting journey first before we delve further.
Yeah, for me, sometimes I pinch myself because I didn't want to do a podcast, and a colleague of mine, Steve, basically, said you need to do one. So I begrudgingly started, and the first few episodes were just little snippets about burnout and how to recover from it, signs, things like that. And, after like 50 or so episodes of those things, he reached out. I said, well, great job on the podcast. When are you going to start interviewing people? I'm like, you didn't say anything about me talking to anybody about this. Why in the world should I do that? He said, just do it. So as you said, approaching 900 episodes later, apparently I like doing it. No, I absolutely have a blast doing this. I know you do too, especially with your 6 shows. You get to talk to some amazing people across this planet, and I'm a student every time I go into an episode, whether I'm being interviewed or I'm interviewing someone, because I'm learning things through the conversation and whatnot. And, it's really helpful. And of course, during the pandemic, it was an absolute godsend because you're able to talk with people and not have to necessarily wear a mask, and you could actually, have an engaging conversation. So it was kind of therapeutic in a way. Especially, for that, early days of the pandemic, to be able to, talk with people, because we were all going through something. So it's amazing because I get to talk, like I said, with some amazing people all across the planet with, one common goal. I want to put value out there to help somebody with something that they might be struggling with, or possibly they want to venture into their own business. They want to be an entrepreneur. Who knows? Or even, they're, working with a big organization and they just want some insights as to what could they do to help improve the temperature or the culture in their workplace. So, I take it, really seriously on just making sure that whatever I do, I'm doing my best to help others, because collectively, when we're all doing better, we all do better.
Yeah, excellent. So I know you're with Podbean now, but I don't know, was Podbean around in 2017? No. So where did you start off with, and how many did you change platforms?
Yeah, for me, I originally just started and I just had it on my website. I didn't have a host at all. I just had it linked there. And then, another colleague of mine said, yeah, you're going to need to get on a platform because, you're not going to get the same kind of traction if you just have it hosted there. So you started looking at different places, and, I worked with an organization, the C-Suite Network, was hosted on there for a bit. And then it came across Podbean, and there's Libsyn, and there's, a variety of other platforms as well, but landed on Podbean. They've been good to me. No real plans to change unless, something comes out that's better, that, would obviously, get me exposed to more people or more bells and whistles and whatnot. So I'm always open to look at that. But yeah, I've been with Podbean for several years now, and, so far so good. The platform's fairly easy for us to use, uploading and all of that. But, I obviously, the big player is, Libsyn, and then there's some others as well. And now, of course, now that we're seeing that YouTube is starting to be, or they have been actually for a little bit now, a top podcast host. So it's the case, well, I mean, basically you're hosting your platform on YouTube. But again, it what it boils down to this, anybody that wants to start a podcast or they're currently doing a podcast, is, figure out where your audience is, and be there, whether it's, you host it and then you share snippets on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever. It's important for you to figure out where are your audience members hanging out, because then you, obviously put the information out there, whether it's the full episode or snippets of it, and just watch and monitor how the performance is going, and get feedback. And sometimes it's hard to get feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but sometimes it's like, okay, I know I have a decent listener base, but hearing back from them, going, okay, yeah, you're listening to my show, that's awesome, but you know, I'm assuming it's providing value, but you don't get as much feedback, and that's, I have to be more intentional on that. Is to say, please reach out, tell me what you like about this show, and hopefully, a handful of people will. And especially if they don't like the show, I really want to read those comments because one, it might make me laugh, or two, it might give me an opportunity to go, I could improve on that. So it's I love, again, the platform. It's just an amazing opportunity for us to share our observations in this world, whether it's for workplace or how to do things, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, just on the comments. I mean, there's not that much. I mean, you will get it. What I find is there's more on YouTube. I get a lot of comments on YouTube,
Mm.
and now Spotify allow comments as well. So I'm starting to see it, but you have to kind of just go in and, I mean, I've got the 6 shows, so you go in and you kind of look at the different ones. And sometimes people just, it's usually positive, to be honest. They say it's very rare. And the same with the YouTube as well. I mean, I don't tolerate the negativity, and unfortunately some people do, but it is what, unless it's really abusive, I leave it there. But if it's, if it's, say, the Polish one, for some reason, there's people, they don't like Polish people, and they'll write, so I just report it or delete it. I don't let it get to me, and it's just what it is. But I would expect a lot more comments with the numbers that I've got, but you don't. And but then again, I kind of, it was more when my son was watching YouTube, and I realized that he was always kind of engaging and stuff like that when he was on the telly downstairs. And I said, I'm not even giving thumbs up. And I started consciously then doing that, and then making a few. But like, the reality is, how many things do I watch a day on the different platforms? And I don't even really give much thumbs up. Like, if I'm watching TikTok or whatever, because like sometimes I get some good information from that. I just enjoy it. So
Mhm.
we tend to think that we need the validation, and just that it would be great to kind of see but when you see the numbers, and that's kind of the main thing, is just knowing that they're not dropping. And if you can kind of maintain, and you said a very good thing at the start, and I tell people that, but a lot of people don't, is make sure that you are where their listeners will be, instead of just blasting it out everywhere and just crossing your fingers. So that's kind of an important thing. I'm not sure why my screen is acting up. Apologies for that. But because I've got Podbean, and I find their service is fantastic, but I started using the AI for when it came out. They had the AI, and it's really good because you upload it and it just processes it straight away, and it gives you the show notes, and it's for the Polish one, and it's really, like, I could never write it like the way it does it. It's brilliant. And I'm just wondering, are you using the AI? But I know you're using AI anyway, so you might go from there into how we can be using AI for our podcasting.
Yeah, I've used it a little bit, and thank you for that reminder, because I used, they gave you like a pilot one. I think I used it on a couple episodes, and then I haven't used it. But the fact that they've improved it even since they started it, with it gives you the show notes, it cleans up the audio and all of that. It that shortens up the time frame quite a bit. So for me, and our team, what we end up doing, depending on the quality of the audio coming from, the audience members. And I know there are many podcast hosts that are really, really finicky about, the sound, make sure the microphone and all of that, there's no background noise or anything like that. And I get it. But there's, tools out there now that flushes all of that out, whether it's Adobe Enhance, for example, does a great job of that. Now, the challenge with that is, if you have an M4A, for example, if you record that, or an MP3, and you upload that to Adobe to clean out the background noise, and it does a pretty good job on that. But what it does is it converts it into a WAV file, which tends to be larger than the MP3 file. So from that standpoint, you need to kind of shrink it down, which could affect the quality of the noise, which is kind of counterintuitive. And like, wait a minute, I did this to clean out the audio, but now I shrink it. Now the audio doesn't sound good. So it's an interesting dynamic. But I think Podbean, for example, I think their AI and cleaning things up does a really good job on it. I also there's another handful of platforms as far as editing. There's an AI one, and it's called Resound. I think it's resound.fm. It's one of those things. It's kind of like if you remember in school, you don't remember what room number you're in. You just know that's your class. Same thing with a lot of my bookmarks. It's like, I know this is it. So I just go to my folder that's podcast, and I just click down and I click the, tools that I use for whether it's Podbean or Resound or Adobe or whatever. If you ask me what the URL is, I don't know. It's bookmarked, but I use that a lot because that does a really good job of cleaning out the dead airspace, the ums and ahs and things like that. And, before I was using a local individual for editing, and I feel kind of bad because you hear the stories about AI replacing people. Well, it kind of did. I'm using VAs to, do a lot of the editing and work and all of that good stuff as well. So I'm still using people, but it was, did a good enough job for me that I was like, okay, well, I can do this and, allocate those resources to the VAs to do other things. And so and that's the beautiful thing about AI. Every day there's something new that comes out. Eventually and I'm sure, Podbean and the other players as well are going to create something where literally you might be able to record right within their app, and then it does everything up to going out, and it's like, okay, who's the guest on the show? It's like, okay, it is Roy. Okay, well, it's going to go online. It's going to use AI. It's going to find your image, and it might create a new one. And hopefully it looks like you. That's why you got to trust but verify, because sometimes you'll ask somebody to do something, and I've done that with me. It's like, okay, create an image of me, and I uploaded a photo. It's like, create an image of me doing this. I look at it, it's like, that's not me. And I go look in the mirror. I'm like, no, it's definitely not me. So we got ways to go on it, but I'm excited for the tools, and I've been playing around with AI for 2+ years now. And I've got a download folder just filled with all kinds of different AI tools that I've bought for 10, $15. I don't want to add that number up because I'll get mad at myself. I'm like, I can't believe, but again, you have to, spend some time and invest in to get understanding on some stuff. And a lot of the, apps, much like you remember the .com days, where there were a lot of things out there that weren't really good, and the ones that were good hopefully stuck around. And I think that's the case with a lot of the AI tools. There's a lot of them out there that they look good, but you go, okay, yeah, this one doesn't look like it's going to last long. So it's, one of those things where you don't necessarily want to get married to a tool because they may go away. And we've seen that in the the startups, a lot of the online businesses that started in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. And the stats show that 52% of those companies are gone. So less than 5 years, more than half of them are no longer here. So it's one of those things where when you're testing tools, whether it's for a podcast or for writing or for anything else, it boils down to just, okay, find the one that works for you. But, again, don't invest everything into it because they may not last. So you have to be prepared for that.
And, with the imaging, I use a few different YouTube ones, and vidIQ is one, and it gives you thumbnails. And sometimes, so I could upload your image, and sometimes it can give a brilliant picture, and other times it's like nowhere near. And I've seen people, I've been guesting as well. I've seen one image was done, and I was like, that's brilliant. And it did look like me. So it's weird that it does that. You upload an image, so I could get your picture. You've sent me your picture. I could put it up, and it should create something based on the title I used. But for some reason, it doesn't. But where I would love this to go is, like we know exactly what we need to do, but it's all time consuming. And you can get VA, but you have to do some, like I do a lot of stuff that I do myself. And it's like, if we can have it like the AI agent where we're training it exactly, go out and start checking on my stats, because that takes time. And I actually like to know my stats to see what's actually working and what's not. And if you forgot to post it somewhere and do things there, and there's a load of different things. And even doing interviews and stuff, like I can gather all the stuff. I know you've got like Podmatch and stuff, which is great, but there's other stuff you want to be kind of different. And if you can get it to, and I'm sure you can, but you have to train, but like you need to kind of set so much time aside to have it. But when we get to that level that I go, ooh, this is doing 80% of the stuff that I need to do, but I don't really. And I think we're close to that. And I don't know, it's there already. It's just finding the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the beautiful thing about it is what it creates is, if you have a lot of things automated, and we've been trying to automate stuff long before, AI has been on the scene. And if you can automate a lot of the quote unquote busy work, what that does is it frees you up for, I don't know, maybe longer conversations or more interviews, or, there's other endeavors that you want to work on. You're like, okay, well, this frees me up because I don't have to spend all these hours doing all of these things because it's being done by a VA or AI or a combination of both. And again, it gives you some of that time back. Now, the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs and startups is we find this quote unquote extra time or spare time, and we automatically want to fill it with something. We want to go, oh, now I got time to do this. It's like sometimes we just need to not do anything and learn how to be bored again. And I think I see this a lot with entrepreneurs and business owners is like they don't really take downtime. They don't take just relaxation time very seriously. I mean, yes, watching Netflix or watching your favorite show or a sporting event, okay, that's fine. But usually we're on our phone or we're doing something else while that's going on. So there's a lot to be said of just not doing anything for a bit, not grabbing your iBinky. It's my brother's nickname for my iPhone. I said, just put the pacifier down and just be in the moment. Because what happens, and I know this and I'm guilty of it, is when I step away from the technology and the information overload and all of that, and I just sit around and just kind of, I don't know, drink a cup of coffee or, go for a walk or something like that, all of a sudden I start getting a lot more clarity on things and ideas just start flowing like a river on different initiatives or things like that. And then, of course, I do grab my phone and I'll record a quick voice memo or I'll type a quick note and reminders to say, okay, I want to look at this. And that way I know I'm not going to forget it. It's like it's there. And then I continue on whatever I'm doing. Because when you're relaxing, that's when the ideas start to flow. A lot of times, like, when you're taking a shower, for example, or you're in the washroom, um, sometimes those ideas start flowing. And, the name of my company came to me in the shower. The title Chief Burnout Officer came to me in the shower. And it was just, okay, wow, where'd that come from? Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, well, let me see if I remember it. But because I don't have a notepad or anything in my shower, I know some people have, washable, notepads and things like that. So when they come up with ideas, I can write them down. But thankfully, I don't need to do that yet. But maybe as I get older, I might need to. But again, there's so many awesome things that we get to do now. The technology's made it possible, whether it's, this platform that we're on right now, talking with each other, completely different sides of the world, to podcast and interviewing people and meeting people that, quite frankly, before this medium existed, the likelihood of us uh, coming into contact with each other, the odds are slim. Wouldn't not impossible, but slim. So it opens up the door for us to meet more and more amazing human beings, and I think we all benefit from that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I'm really conscious of kind of losing your creative thinking, even driving. We tend to just have the music on, and sometimes I'm turning it off because then you're just kind of present in your thoughts. I mean, you're obviously paying attention to driving, but even in the gym, I used to listen to podcasts all the time or music, and I stopped doing that. I was like, I'm kind of, you're there, you're doing your exercise, but you're not in your head, and you're not kind of, I like in the morning, I always like kind of try to plan my day and everything. But then after that, you're always kind of on the go, and it's very hard to. And what I've done 2 weeks ago, no, I started deleting a load of the apps on like LinkedIn, X on my phone, Facebook, Instagram. And yeah, my productivity has gone up because it's like you just reach for it and you're just kind of, cars stopped at the traffic lights, and you're, instead of just kind of being there present, and we're all guilty of it. And it's like,
And
I mean, the younger generation don't even know what it's like to kind of use your brain. Like they can't be without the time. They're kind of, if technology, if their phone is taken away or if their battery is gone, like they go into depression, which is kind of scary to see.
very much so. Yeah, it's, the younger generations have grown up on technology, even to the point, and I find this kind of interesting because one of the things that I do in my spare time is occasionally I'll help out. There's a robotics after school program. And and I do it, not for the money per se, although, a little extra spending money on here, there always helps. But I did it because it's such a shift for me from the work that I do. Because, when you're working with people that are burned out or you're trying to improve, a toxic workplace, sometimes that stuff can get heavy and it's not sunshine and roses kind of thing. So, going into an after school robotics program, they use Lego robotics and they also use coding and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. But one of the things that, that have come from that is just, watching the creativity of kids, but also what I found, especially, with the younger kids, especially if this is the first time, because they use laptop computers. They don't have touchpads in there. They use laptop computers. And a lot of the kids, have no clue how to use a mouse or a touchpad on a laptop. And I look and I go, huh? I'm like, how? It reminds me back to the mid 90s when I worked for an independent insurance agency. It was a multi-location place. And this was right when Windows, and just date myself a little bit, when Windows was still relatively new. I think Windows 95 was about to come out. So, but we were still using Windows 3.1. And our CSRs, or customer service representatives that were helping clients with their insurance claims and policies and all of that stuff, prior to that, they weren't really using computers, at least not Windows. They might have been using an old platform, DOS and stuff like that, where they type in some things. But, using a mouse and a graphic user interface was foreign to a lot of these CSRs because most of them were 50s, maybe early 60s. So they hadn't really learned how to use any of that stuff. So they were struggling. We're like, okay, these people are getting frustrated on this. So I had a talk with a colleague of mine, and he said, how you want to teach somebody how to use a mouse, especially if they're at that age? I said, solitaire. It's like, show them solitaire. They've all played solitaire. They love playing solitaire. That way they can play solitaire on the computer. They'll get used to the mouse and all that stuff. So I, I went in and I approached this with the co-owner, and I said, okay, this is going to be off the wall here, but can we let them spend about a half an hour a day playing solitaire? We're going to pay them. Don't have them do it on their break. We're going to pay them. And let me explain why. Because they're going to get used to using the mouse. They'll get better at using the mouse and moving things around and clicking and all of that stuff. So we did that. Now, the other co-owner, I should have told him too, but he came in, he sees all the CSRs playing solitaire. He loses it. And I was by when he started going, and I went, George, come here. I already talked to the other co-owner. Work with me on this, please. This is why we're doing this. This is a training exercise. They don't know how to use a mouse. We're gonna do this for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna let it. And then afterwards, I'll remove solitaire from the computer. They won't be able to play it, okay? But they want to get it. Sure enough, 2 weeks, they were all excellent using a mouse computer. They got better. They're so much more productive. And it was like, well, that was genius. It's like, yeah, but you were yelling at me at the beginning, so it wasn't genius then. It's genius now. But but it just kind of, going back to the school. It I was like, how do they not know how to use this? But they've always been on iPads and maybe their parents' phone. They've never been using a laptop computer or learning how to do anything that way. So when they get there, they're like, that's why on the on the screens we always see the fingerprints on there from the kids that are trying to move something over. It's like I keep telling the owner, it's like maybe we should start thinking about investing. No, the cost is way too much. They're going to break them too quickly. So we're going to stick with this for now. Helps them learn it. So when they actually go to work, in a workplace, my hunch, I could be wrong, we'll probably still be using the laptops, but maybe not. We might all be using touchscreen kind of things going forward on everything. But right now, I still like the tactile keyboard on things.
And I'm just wondering, when people went from the typewriter to the keyboard, was there people using Tipex on the screen? It wouldn't surprise me if somebody actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
So with the burnout, and why I'd like to kind of delve into that is, I mean, I've experienced it when I was younger because I was working 8 to 12, so I kind of know it in a work environment. But a lot of time people experience that podcasters kind of get all gung-ho excited, and they have other things, they have jobs and stuff like that, and that's what they usually kind of say, oh, I burnt myself out. So we might kind of touch on the burnout, but then from a podcaster's perspective.
Yeah, what happens, and it's similar across all kinds of industries, but in podcasting in general, everyone starts off and we are just gung ho. We interview a ton of people. We're on it all the time. We're doing the editing. We're doing all the stuff, long before the AI tools that have, shrunk up the amount of time it takes to do something, which is helpful. But we just, dive into it. And for many of us, we are working full-time jobs or doing something else. And it gets to the point where that passion that we had, was, just amazing. We love doing it. All of a sudden, it starts to feel like a chore. And that's sad because again, I think the medium of podcasting, and we see it, the massive growth that we've seen over the last few years, has been tremendous because again, it gives access to, people that we wouldn't necessarily get access to, both from, a guest standpoint or just listening to shows of, of famous people. And, they're sharing kind of in an intimate way. It feels, like a one-on-one kind of conversation in many cases where they're kind of peeling the layers back and you get to know these people a little bit more, as much as they want to share. And I think that's one of the things that resonates with me on the platform. But the burnout happens when, and this is again across the board, burnout can happen very innocently. It's not something that just happens overnight. It takes time, but I see time and time again, people will burn out doing things that are actually good. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea for you to do that, but they don't have the right boundaries, around when they do it, when they don't. And, I ran into the situation myself, where obviously I had my burnout, back in 2009, which was long before my podcasting started. But, I started noticing, because I know the signs of burnout, that I was starting to get a little overwhelmed because I was just interviewing all the time. It was just all the time. And I had to kind of lean back and go, all right, I need to scale this back a little bit because while it's great and I'm having all these conversations, it was starting to take a toll on me because I was doing it so much. That's like, okay, I need to, scale it back. Let's pick, a couple days a week that I do this. Because before I was, sure, Monday to Friday. Okay, let's have a chat. Now, if this, my platform ever goes to a talk show type of thing or every day a week, or it's, hosted on another platform like SiriusXM or another platform where it's all the time, then, then we can have that conversation. But for me, it was like, okay, I need to scale it back. So what I do is usually I record one day a week, 3 or 4 episodes. Yesterday I had 5 scheduled, one had to reschedule. The 5's a little much for me. And then what I mean by that is just knowing my own energy levels. And I want my energy level to be good because I want to be engaged in the conversation. I want to be there. I don't want to be like, Okay, this is the sixth interview today. All right. Okay, what do you do? I don't want to do that. It's not fair to the guest. It's not fair to the audience. So for me, it's understanding. And again, this goes across the board, not just for podcasting, but everything. You have to understand your own energy levels and when you're energetic and when you're not. And, I did this many, many years ago, long again, before I even launched podcasts, because I was a healthcare executive. So I was doing a lot of work around running multiple clinics and clinicians, doctors, patients, there's a lot to it. So for me, I just decided okay, I'm going to break down my energy levels throughout the day and kind of figure out, where my energies ebb and flow. And by doing that, what I found was I'm obviously more productive in the morning. I can do more analytical work in the morning. I can pattern recognition. I can see things. Afternoon, not as much. So afternoons would be more for conversations, maybe some meetings, maybe some organization things where reorganizing things or planning things and stuff like that. So it's not as analytical as what I'm doing in the morning. And when I figured that out for myself, I found that I was more productive. I was getting a lot more done in less time. And I think that just, for podcasters is, figuring out, okay, when are you most engaged when you do the interviews? Okay. Mornings, good. Okay. Maybe some people are afternoons, some people are evenings. We saw that in the pandemic with a lot of parents, for example, that were home. They had the quintessential 9 to 5 job, and then they recognized really quick, oh, their kids are in school around that time. I'm like, okay, so I have to work, but my kids are in school and I got to help them with school at the same time. That didn't work out very well. So what happened is a lot of parents would get up earlier in the morning, start doing some work, and then help their kids and do all the home things. And then later on at night, after the kids were in bed or wound down, they'd do more work. Made for some long days, but it did create a lot of opportunities for people to understand, wait a minute, my productivity increases either early in the morning or late at night. So they realized, yeah, I'm actually a better employee working later than earlier in the day. And if their organization allowed for it and there was flexibility and it didn't impact the workflow of others, we saw a lot of people starting to shift their workloads to later in the day. And they were getting a lot more done in less time because they found their quote unquote sweet spot. And for podcasters, it's, find your sweet spot. It varies. And then that's when you do your show. Now, of course, you have to be flexible, especially like in this situation. I told you what time it was for me, but I'm an early riser. Now, for some people, you do not want to, and I know some of these people, you do not want to talk to them before 10 a.m. That just don't. It's not good. It's danger. I worked with a doctor, and she always worked the evening shift at our clinic. One time she came in for a meeting at like 10:30 in the morning. It was like a different human being. I'm like, whoa, like what? And she was grumpy. She was not happy. It was such a weird dynamic and not her typical self. And I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to do any 10 a.m. meetings anymore with Dr. O coming in because that's not fair to anybody, including her.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of people and kind of managed a lot of people as well as having a lot work for me. And I always kind of tapped into where they were best. There was one guy on a construction site and he was always after 12, but he'd be working till 2 in the morning and he'd get 10 times more done than people that were there for the day. And it was cool with me, but I used to annoy other people and they used to be like, oh, he must be here. And it was, for me, it was like, I see he's getting so much done. But a lot of people, they'd rather a person be there from 8 to 4, 8 to 5. And if it's not their style, one, they're going to leave eventually, but two, they're just not firing in all cylinders. And regarding the scheduling, I mean, because I did the same. I maybe 6 was the max, and I used to be drained from it. It was like, so now I have my calendar system that max is 3 can be booked. So once 3 are booked, then no, you can no longer book that day. And I do the same, like, because I have my son, I have equal custody. So it's like when I collect him from school on kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm kind of like half one. that's like, so I might, like today, no, it's the only one that I have. It's early today for me, just before noon for this one. And like, by doing that, you're totally present, you're preparing better, and it's enjoy. And I think that's just learning as you go along, because at the start you're all like, and then I've realized as well, because I've got to say, the speaking, I've got so many, I stopped taking people in because I said I've such a backlog, and that's freeing me up then to get other stuff done as well. And it's just kind of realizing what you're doing. And it's also like, if I look at how I did, I mean, we talked about the software at the start. At the start, I was using Audacity going in. I was spending hours uploading, listening to the whole lot, making sure I didn't make a mistake and being paranoid about it. And now it's like, I use Adobe, and the AI as well, and different things. And it's way better. And it's like, it doesn't affect the numbers, because if you're tracking the analytics, you can sometimes, you can kind of say, this doesn't make a difference. And once you're tracking it, you can actually see, hey, it doesn't make a difference. And I've just saved myself a load of time. And just having Excel sheets, and just, I mean, I used to do the insert in the intro and outro. I removed that. I said this, because it's taking time on the computer, slowing down the processing power. And I didn't want to have two separate computers, because I like to just stay in the one place.
Right.
And I was like, this is better. And like, say, with the Adobe, I know I can use, say, the pod match, but I do it for the video version. So as you say, the conversion, what I use is convert online. So then when it's and I need it in a different format, so I use the Adobe and then do that. And it seems that, like, the sound quality is good and everything, but that was all stuff that you learn as you go along. Because if I listen to the earlier ones and I go, as much as I thought it was great, it wasn't really. And like, you look at it as you go along. But I think sometimes people, they try at the start, they're trying to be perfect for everything. And that by trying to be perfect, they're overwhelming themselves, because they're spending 20 hours when really you could do it in 5. And then they're thinking, I don't have 20 hours to do this. Instead of trying to get strategic and kind of go, okay, even to outsource, like VA to do the shorts and stuff. I mean, you can use software, as you say, but I mean, like, I've got my team that'll put all the shorts. The way I do it, how I shrink that down, is I put it up on YouTube and they take it from there. So I don't even have to send the file, because sometimes you forget to send the file and then the whole lot is stopped and you're going, oh, and jazz me. And now you assume just, so now it's like, I put what's being done. They just take it, create the shorts, and they know exactly where to put it. Whereas most people, like, they're trying to go into Opus clips and all these. There's a load of things, and it's brilliant, but it takes hours, because you can't just wing it. You need to have the starting point, instead of, because loads of people will put up stuff, it's halfway through a question, and you're going, what's that about? And yeah, you can wing that, but the problem is, it's all these small little shortcuts that are done wrong can hurt you. Whereas if you just kind of take your time, I believe it all. It just builds. And
Yeah, and it's, again, understanding, goes back to, you said scheduling, and figuring out, okay, how do I best spend my time? How do I leverage technology to help with this? What am I trying to accomplish? Okay, so do I need to make the YouTube shorts? Do I need to make TikTok shorts or videos? Does it make sense? Is that where my audience is? Other people are doing it. Does it make sense? Well, we know the attention span of people continues to get shorter and shorter. So ultimately you go, well, here, let's whet their appetite. Let's have the little snippet here of something that we said that will resonate with people. And they'll go, ooh, that's actually good. I want to hear more of that. Well, of course, then they'll watch the rest of the video or listen to the rest of the podcast. And it's like an appetizer. It's like, a little snippet, like, a trailer for a movie or a preview for a show next week. Next week on NCIS, it's going to be this. And you're like, ooh, I want to watch that. It's the same thing. But again, do it right. And then the perfection thing, yeah, that we see that a lot, and perfection can lead to burnout, because you're just focusing so much on the process instead of focusing on, the journey of just being able to do it. And a doctor, ironically, that, I worked with on committees and all kinds of stuff, he was, he didn't do this in his practice, but when it came to, like, designing workflows and systems, he was of the opinion, okay, it's good enough. Let's just start. We can adjust it along the way. Where a lot of other doctors like, well, it's got to be this and this and this. It's got to be, this degree and all of that. And it just bogged things down. He's like, good enough. Let's just get it out the door. We'll fix as we improve it. And I can't do that. And he says, okay, what version of Windows do you have on your computer? And at that time, I think it was Windows 10. Windows 10. So, okay, so there have been how many versions of Windows? At least 10. So that means there were 9 other versions that they felt weren't good enough, so they improved it. But they didn't wait to launch it. And I'm like, all right, it's good enough. Let's launch it. And we'll update and fix as we go along. And there's a lot to be said about that. It's like, get the stuff out there, especially if you're thinking about launching a podcast. When people say, I'm thinking about doing it, it's like, well, do it. Well, I don't know what to do. Upload a video on YouTube, classified as a podcast. I'll take you, I don't know. I don't worry about editing. Don't just get out there and say what you want to say, or you can do it on Instagram or TikTok or wherever. Just start. And then you get the flow and the rhythm, and then that's when the creativity can come into it, and just, allow the creativity to come. And too often, if we're focusing so much on the perfection and the clip art and all that other stuff, and I love vidIQ, by the way. That's a sweet system too. That's helped a lot and really improved like the SEO scores on the videos, because they come up with much better titles than I can. So it's, again, one of those great tools out there that helps people get a fighting chance for people to see it.
I mean, even with the keyword tags. But what's strange with sometimes with this, because I guess the team to do the shorts, so I don't use the video. I might go in myself when I see it, just kind of improve it a bit. But there's been times where I do spend a lot of time, and I'll have a title of 100, uh, thumbnail 100, and then I'll make sure I get all the high ranking things. And it doesn't do that well. And they put up something like it's massive numbers. They forgot to put tags and stuff like that. Just uploaded a short. So sometimes the software is, as much as I expected the numbers to be actually better based on the amount of time that you're going in. And it does look better, because just like I always have an idea for a title, and then it'll just improve it. And I go, ooh, I like that. And yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like, does it grab the person's attention? And the same with the graphic. But I mean, I'm not sure with you, but like there's still times that I can get one now, could get 800. I mean, there's ones, my best has got like 20,000, but you still get some that's 20. And it could be a way better interview. It could be fantastic. And that's frustrating when you spend a lot of time going in and hitting all the buttons to make sure, because you think, no, people need to see this. And then sometimes it's the shorts that'll get a load of views based on just the little points that you extract from it.
Yeah. Or it could be something that is completely unrelated to your brand, which there's arguments for and against that. I know the individual that owned the publishing house that published a handful of my books, he was one that, he was like, when you're on social media for your brand, you stay consistent. Don't post something that's completely different than, your company, your brand, and things like that. I have the argument of, you want to show people that you're human, but it's a fine line, it's and how people can interpret it. But ultimately, it's like, just, okay, will this resonate with my audience? So the more you know about your audience, the better. And you can get stats and demographics and things like that. So you do your best. But yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, it's like, you can post something, you have the best interview ever. You could interview, maybe one of the most famous people in the world. And all of a sudden you interview somebody that is from Toledo, Ohio, and they have come up with a new way to do some you know city farming type of thing, that passes the laws, so you can have a little mini farm in the city, which there's a lot of legislation that kind of forbids that for some reason. But for some reason, the famous person gets so many videos, but the one that does the city farming, all of a sudden that's the one that gets the 40,000 views, and you're like, huh? So my advice for people is, create content, put it out there. The people that need to see it will see it. And if you're doing it to create impact and help people, everything will take care of itself. and just, continue to enjoy the craft of being a creator. And I think that's the beautiful thing that we get to do, especially as podcast hosts and attendees on podcasts, is we get to create. And that's just a fun thing to do.
No, I think that's a very important point, because a lot of the time people are really, they're putting so much effort and they're looking at people trying to go, oh, I'll replicate this. And even if we look at the get, I mean, I've had a lot, like David Icke saying, I mean, he was on London Reel and they got like 10 million live or something. It was like a massive, and then you're expecting, oh, he's agreed to come on my show. And it's like, you just think, oh, and nothing. And then there was a beatboxer that was 16 that got massive numbers. It just, because the thing is, when I'm looking at people I follow, I'm not following him on every show he's going on because I know the content. I'm usually going to his stuff. And sometimes people think that everyone from his listenership, whether he's got 1,000, a million, 10 million followers, that they're going to start all of a sudden just come, and that's not the way it works. And it's, I think the most important thing is just get the information out and it lands on someone's lap when it needs to. And like I see lots of times people share it, and I love to see that. It means it's resonated, whether it's on a TikTok short or it's an episode or something like that. You just see somebody, maybe it's just 3 times that they'll share different things, and you just go, okay, they felt value in that. And it's nice to actually, and that's all it's about, just getting it out there, not worrying about them. I mean, at the start, it was always about the numbers. You were kind of trying to, oh, let's get to the first 100, let's get to the first 1,000. And then when you get, when it gets big, it's not about the numbers. It's just making sure that you're providing value and try to make change in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, you provide value and things will take care of itself. And, it's a lot of people go, so I need this to, generate a whole lot of revenue so I can quit my job. Okay. Well, that's a goal. All right. Well, what do you need to do in order for that to happen? And, you know, like Steve Jobs, work backwards. What's your outcome? What do you want to get? Okay, now let's work backwards. How do you get there? And, it's going to be, lots of twists and turns along the way. But stick to it, and that's, the thing that I've learned is, that's why we see so many businesses start up and fail, is because they just, they run out of gas, or they run out of money. It could be a variety of different things. So you just have to, slow and steady wins the race. And I know for a lot of us, we are an instant society. We want the answers yesterday. We want, and AI certainly isn't helping that desire, where we can go or look on a search engine like Google or whatever and look up something, get the answer we want, within seconds. And we've kind of conditioned ourselves that, well, if I can get that in seconds, I can become a Instagram influencer in seconds and, make $1 billion. Well, I'm willing to bet that a lot of those Instagram or social media influencers are not making the amount of money that you think they are. They might be. I don't know. Some probably are. I'm guessing a lot don't. But you know what? For me, that doesn't matter. It's like, if they're enjoying what they're doing and they're creating content that people want to watch and consume and learn from, then by all means do it. But again, understanding, that, this is, in most things, it's not a get rich quick. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes someone will post something and all of a sudden they get a huge following and they grow like crazy. And you think of, people like Mr. Beast, for example, okay, obviously doing quite well. And, has put the content out that he's put out and does really well with it. There's other people that are putting out content that, is just as good, maybe even better. And like you said, it's crickets. They're not being seen. And you figure out, okay, well, how do I need to be seen? Well, you find your audience and serve them and target them, find out where they are, find out what, they are looking for. There's many ways to find out what people are looking for and just create content that helps them and serves them. Because you start helping enough people, it's going to pay dividends for you.
And your books then, what are your books on?
Yeah, most of my books, first few were on burnout. Burnout Proof was the last book that I published on burnout. It talks about, what burnout is, the signs, how to get out of it. I share my burnout journey that I had, which there was another book that I wrote back in 2017 called 369 Days, How to Survive a Year Worst Case Scenarios, which chronicles my my burnout journey and everything that happened because of burnout. My most recent book, which I got to get, it's on Kindle. I keep forgetting. It's like, I got to publish that on paperback. It's there. It's ready to go. I completely forgot I was going to do it at the beginning of April. We're almost at June at the time of this recording. So I'm like, oops, forgot that, but I'll get there. I wrote a book called Workplace Culture, because there's a component of that that kicks into causing employees and managers and leaders to burn out. And we're seeing, the numbers, that workplaces are not civil, quite toxic. That's why you're seeing a lot of people wanting to be their own boss and leave, because just the environments aren't healthy. And it's because everybody is struggling with something right now. It could be post or unaddressed post-traumatic stress from the pandemic, or inflation, or global tariffs, you name it. There's never a shortage of external things that can cause us stress. But the key thing is, how do we recognize that and look within and deal with, what can I control here? Because if it's something I can't control, me stressing about it isn't going to change anything. So you have to get a better understanding of how you operate, how you take in, from scheduling your podcast to when you do things and when you don't. There's a lot of things involved with just getting a better understanding of who you are. And sometimes people are kind of afraid to look in, which breaks my heart when I think about it, is because you're never going to spend any more time on this planet with anybody besides yourself. So figure out a way to love yourself, figure out what's important to you, what motivates you. And that changes over time. The 56-year-old version of me is definitely different than the 26-year-old version of me. But I had hair back then, as you can see, not so much now. But, different viewpoints, different career path, different everything. And, time and life tends to adjust, what motivates you and what excites you. And I implore people just to get a better understanding of who they are, figure out what you can control. Your mindset is a big thing. And then from there, these stressful situations won't be as stressful because you're not letting them wear you down. And I think that's the big takeaway from whether it's the workplace culture books or the burnout books or anything else that I do.
Brilliant. And just finally, what I'd like to touch on is your certified NLP and CBT. I know that's neuralistic programming, but CBT therapist. What's CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. They're very similar in nature. There's a lot of cross pollination between the two modalities. And reason why I got certified in both of them was when I was working with people and teams, I kept coming up against the same things. And having worked in healthcare for over a decade and hiring mental health workers and understanding their programs and the things that they used in working with patients, uh, a lot of thoughts, habits, behaviors, patterns are what creates the situations for us to burn out. So I thought, I want to dig into this a little bit deeper. And I started looking into it and was fascinated by it. It's like the brain is, talk about a place to explore. There's a lot to be learned about how we react, how we behave, pattern recognitions, thoughts, beliefs, all of that. So I went through that and became certified therapist in those modalities because I was kind of using them anyway, in working with people, but it provided me a little bit more of a framework to follow. There's a phrase called chunking up and chunking down. So basically, it's like, okay, why do you think you burned out? Well, because of this and this. Well, why was that important to you? And okay, what were you trying to accomplish? What were some of the thoughts you were having when you were experiencing these situations? So you're basically kind of getting people to look within a little bit more to kind of flush those things out, because they're usually not questions that they ask themselves. They just say, well, I'm burned out. Okay, well, why do you say that? And what gives you some ideas? Now, not accusing them, but just approaching it with, quite frankly, a childlike curiosity. Well, why do you think that? And it gets them to start thinking about, okay, this is why it's important. Well, why did you want to launch a podcast? What were your goals when you first launched it? Are they the same goals now, or have they changed? Okay, why do you think they changed? And again, it's a conversation. It's, definitely not accusational. You have to frame it to make sure that you're not judging anybody. You're just like, just I want you to kind of get a picture. And what happens is they start to get a little bit more insight as to, okay, why this was important and motivation. And then they can look and go, okay, is that still the situation or has that changed? And what that does is it gives them the freedom to be able to navigate through, different things. And they get a little bit more in tune with situations. And I find it time and time again with as stressful as this world can be, those that kind of understand what can they control and what they can't, it's not that they don't feel what's going on in the world. It's not like they stick their head in the sand and ignore it, but they don't let it impact them or they don't react to it the same way as a lot of other people do. So I found it was really helpful in doing the work. Also, just being a better host as well, and asking questions and kind of pull out some things instead of the kind of surface level type of questions that sometimes we get asked in life. Thankfully, on this show, you've been chunking down, deep into some things and flushing it out. So it helps when you have 6 shows. You get a lot of practice.
Or when you've got nearly 1,000 episodes like yourself, like so. Yeah. No, listen, Michael, thoroughly enjoy it, and I think it's very relevant because we touched on the compressing to make sure that you don't fail the game, but the burnout because there's a high percentage of people that experience it. They've either done it, or they're going through it, or it's in the future. So it's very relevant. So thank you very much for what you shared. You might let the listeners know where they can find you.
Yeah, best place is just go to breakfastleadership.com. There's all kinds of different resources on it. I'm redesigning the webpage. We'll see what happens first. Do I get the page fully redesigned, or do I release the workplace culture book in paperback and hardcover? But breakfastleadership.com, you can find all the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and whatnot there as well. And reach out, and more than happy to have a conversation with you about burnout, workplace culture, whatever I need guidance with or a question on. I'm an open book. I love talking with people and helping them because when people and companies are healthier, we all benefit from it. So just go to breakfastleadership.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put the links below the audio and the video. And those watching on Spotify, BitChute, and Rumble will actually see his lovely background, and you can see the actual domain name there. So, so you'll find everything about me on podfather.me or scan the QR code or go to roycall.com. If you're looking for a virtual assistant, go to va.world. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and comment, and make sure you do the same to Michael. Check out his podcast and give him a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps. And if you get his book, do the same thing, because sometimes we tend to just get complacent, enjoy something, and just move on to the next. But it really helps the creator when you do that. Until next week, take care.